What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Schreckbein, joined always by my main man, Jacob Punturi. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers had themselves a bit of a quiet weekend. Plenty of conversation about Chris Olave and a potential wide receiver trade with the New Orleans Saints. Some are backing Mason Rudolph. Some are talking Aaron Rodgers. And, well, we sit here a week and 2 days away from the start of OTAs here in Pittsburgh. And there's plenty to talk about. We're diving into all of it, plus more. And as always, we will answer all of your questions. It's been a great one here in the Berg. Hope you enjoyed your weekend. How you feeling, my friend?
Feeling good. I'm trying out a reclined position today for the show. Feeling nice, hanging out in the basement of the house today. But yeah, feeling good. Ready to get this week rocking. We had a nice weekend. A little chillier than I expected this morning. Not to get too much into the weather report, but had a little bit of a shiver when I took the puppies out this morning. So, trying to just warm up a little bit and ready to chat some Steelers, dude.
I agree. It was a weekend that was beautiful. This morning I woke up, went to water the flowers, get the Monday morning rolling, and it was a little nippy outside. But it's all right. I'll take it. You're looking good. You're looking comfy over there in the reclined position. It looks like you suits you well. And with that, I'm excited to dive into it. Let's start quarterback conversation this morning. That's where most things start and end with the Pittsburgh Steelers. You could talk any direction you want when it comes to the Steelers right now. Doesn't matter who their wide receiver 2 is, because Mason Rudolph's throwing them the football. Will Howard might have a leg up or a hand in the pile for the competition. And Aaron Rodgers is still at home a week away from OTAs. I will say that I'm still fairly confident that he's going to show up before the summer fully gets rolling, but I don't know that for fact. I can't say it as fact. And if it doesn't happen, well, I'll look like a little bit of a laughing stock, and that's okay. I'll take the L. I'm always about taking L's. But it is important to dive into it. Meanwhile, there's another name that has, I guess, become a real option for the Pittsburgh Steelers. A name that, to be quite honest, I have ignored because, fallback plan, great. Having a guy who's been here, awesome. But everybody wants to talk like Mason Rudolph has been part of this. Mason Rudolph knows what he's walking into. I don't view Mason Rudolph the same way. I view Mason Rudolph as a guy who was here with the last offensive coordinator and the offensive coordinator before that. Never really had any connection with Arthur Smith except for going to his former team when he was gone and then coming back. Has to learn a completely new offense. I think that you have to put into account, but is getting time right now with his wide receivers. I don't know if you saw the goatee throwing passes during the off-season program that the Steelers shared online. That's the start that the Steelers and everybody else is hoping Aaron Rodgers had with his wide receivers. Mason Rudolph's the guy doing it, and former Steelers quarterback Charlie Batch believes that gives him an upper hand if Aaron Rodgers continues to hold this thing out. He said on the Arthur Moats podcast the other day, quote, Mason Rudolph, he was here, but he wasn't in this system. So he does have a leg up as it relates to learning the offense because he's been here for the last couple of months. I think the longer it goes towards training camp, I think you have to give the edge to Mason Rudolph because that means he knows the system a little bit better than what Aaron Rodgers does. 2 questions to kick this one off. 1, Aaron Rodgers is 41 years old, 4-time MVP, has learned offenses in the past with ease, and yes, struggled last year, and maybe he's going to struggle again, but overall wildly successful career in the NFL. Can't take that away from him, no matter how much he upsets you at this point in time being a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. Is it a little bit outrageous to think that he wouldn't be able to pick up on this offense quick enough to give himself pole position, we'll call it, in the quarterback competition against Mason Rudolph? And second, Mike Tomlin has made it very known over the last couple of years that he makes the calls and his decision this is not a democracy. This is Mike Tomlin is the dictator and he decides all. And, a lot of times that works out. A lot of times it doesn't work out. And when it comes to the quarterback situation, he's had that call for years and he's never favored Mason Rudolph in it. Russell Wilson missed all of last summer and Justin Fields became the guy. Very impressive. Arthur Smith loved him. The offense loved him. They wanted Justin Fields to be the guy moving forward. Mike Tomlin decided Russell Wilson's going to be the guy. We knew he was going to be the guy because the moment we signed him, I knew he was going to be the guy. That's the same thing with Aaron Rodgers here. Mike Tomlin's not calling Aaron. Aaron and the Steelers aren't having conversations about Aaron coming in here to be a backup. That's not part of the plan. That's not part of any conversations that are being had. But just like Charlie Batch said, the longer you wait, the more you're giving Mason Rudolph an opportunity to showcase himself. So do you even consider the possibility that Aaron wouldn't pick up on this offense fast enough to kind of pull him back in a competition, quote unquote? And two, is there, like, in any world, no matter when Aaron Rodgers signs, is there a competition at quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers this offseason? If Aaron's here.
Yeah, I'll answer the second question first. I think the moment Aaron Rodgers signs, the competition ends for the starting quarterback position. I think we can probably both agree on that.
Yes.
As much of a head start as Mason may theoretically be getting by having the playbook and learning and throwing with receivers now. To go back to your first question, I think it's nice to see your maybe number 2 quarterback, maybe spot starting quarterback getting integrated with the system, being able to build that camaraderie with the wide receivers. But yeah, nothing about that tells me that it would be better than what Aaron Rodgers will come in and do. And I really fail to see how, as impressive as Mason Rudolph can be in the offseason, in OTAs, in preseason, whatever it is, if Aaron Rodgers shows up, I truly believe that he will grasp the offense quicker, will have a better ability to utilize it, and then will look better within that system. So yeah, I think as nice as it is, I want to build up Mason Rudolph as much as he can. I do think the Steelers have done him sort of a disservice while not because they haven't built him up while they haven't signed Rodgers. Yes, it feels obvious that they're just waiting to make this quarterback move happen, but the fact that they have just kind of let him just sit idly by all summer and have done nothing to sort of pump him up or gas him up or anything like that, it's just like, well, yeah, they don't believe he's going to grasp the offense any faster than whoever they bring in next, Aaron Rodgers. So why should I?
Exactly. There's been no signs of, you know what I mean? Like there was I think 11 pictures shared on 10, at least double-digit pictures shared from the Pittsburgh Steelers about them just doing nonsense on the field for the first time this offseason. There was one of Mason Rudolph, and it was like a little video snippet of him for 2 seconds. You didn't even if he didn't have a goatee, you wouldn't even know who it was.
Exactly.
And like the Steelers do not look at this situation right now and give you any sign that Mason Rudolph in their eyes is the guy, and that probably means that because they view Aaron Rodgers as almost a lock in this situation. I would imagine they have a much stronger feel on what's happening than me and you and anybody else. And while I'm confident that it's going to happen, while you're confident that it's going to happen, the Steelers are almost operating as if it already did. And they're just, Aaron's not showing up till July, so that's fine. Or he's not showing up until minicamp, and that's fine. If he wasn't here anyways, Mason Rudolph would be the guy taking first team reps because that's what's happening. I mean, look at Mason's 29 years old. Okay. And we're past the, maybe Mason has this like future Pro Bowl caliber in him. Maybe he could be the guy. He's a 3rd round pick who's never become the guy in Pittsburgh, and he's been fighting from behind the whole time. I understand that. Went to Tennessee, didn't have the competition Will Levis was not strong competition. And then when he got the job, he didn't do enough to say, I'm the guy and I'm going to stick around in Tennessee and I'm going to give you a fighting chance. Now, don't get me wrong, Tennessee is atrocious, but you still didn't do anything to kind of put yourself in a place where you are, at least you weren't even considered by teams this offseason to be the guy by anybody. Pittsburgh signed you because they understand that they need somebody who's been here, and this is a familiar, comfortable face in Mason Rudolph. But there is no part of this at any point in my head where Aaron Rodgers misses a date and then all of a sudden Mason Rudolph becomes a dude who has any advantage in any competition. I don't even see a competition being real between Mason Rudolph and Aaron Rodgers, which poses the second question here. We could we both agreed there's no leg up. That we both agreed that there's not going to be a competition. Aaron Rodgers could sign the day after training camp starts. He's still the starting quarterback come week 1 unless something drastic happens.
Yep.
When it comes to Aaron Rodgers, OTAs are next week. Mini camps 2 weeks after that one. We're getting close to the point of, okay, here are all these timelines that everybody's been laying out, myself included, and I still think it's a possibility. Like, a week is a long time in Aaron Rodgers' world. We are nowhere. He's going to take this thing down to the wire, probably let 1 or 2 or a couple OTA practices go by because, that's anticlimactic to show up the day before OTAs instead of 4 days into OTAs. But if he doesn't, if Aaron Rodgers isn't showing up till July, is it a problem for you? Like, does it hinder the Steelers at all to say he didn't get, it would be 6 practices, helmets and shorts, with a bunch of guys, most of them aren't going to make the team? Like, does that bother you?
Yes. I have a fundamental issue with not showing up for OTAs unless you're in some sort of like contractual negotiation sort of situation and you're trying to find leverage. I aside from that, I really don't think there's a lot of excuses to not at least show up. So I have a fundamental issue with taking that approach as a teammate, as the new quarterback, the new starting quarterback, no less. I realize it's, a different situation. The Steelers have kind of been doing this since Roethlisberger retired anyway, so they're like always trying to figure out what to do with the QB situation. But nonetheless, I don't like the idea of him not showing up. And I will call reference to his first season with the Jets. He did show up at OTAs. So,
Yeah.
Holding out hope that maybe he chooses the anticlimactic route this year and just maybe shows up for OTAs. Doesn't have to like participate, get in the nitty gritty, be taking every snap, doing all this stuff. But I want to see the quarterback who's going to be QB1 with the team when OTAs start.
I agree. Like, it's that you. I think it's the message more than anything at this point for the Pittsburgh Steelers. People are looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers saying, this is not a serious team. These are not a contender. This is not a team that's going to go win the Super Bowl. This is a team that has done not enough this offseason to make you feel confident in them. There are a lot of questions about the head coach, screaming questions about the head coach, and if he's the guy for the job for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The ownership's under fire at this point. Omar Khan's job's getting called out at this point. The Pittsburgh Steelers overreacted to a wide receiver position and then messed up that overreaction by trading George Pickens and doing nothing to replace him, although we'll get to that here in a minute. You're looking at the Steelers right now and saying, guys, you got to send a sign, because this is what it comes down to. Is the Steelers for the last couple of years have been trying desperately, no matter how many times Mike Tomlin goes to a podium on a Tuesday after a blowout loss where fans are chanting fire Tomlin or fire Canada or bench Kenny or whatever they were doing, and saying the fans should do this. We should be a better product for the fans. The noise is there's nowhere else to turn. You know what I'm saying? That's where we're at. There's no more chants directed anywhere else but fire Tomlin. And when those chants start, that's when we've hit. The Steelers are at the point where they are backed into a corner. They're, and waiting for Rodgers and having Rodgers not show up by OTAs and minicamp and drawing this into the summer, the more pressure you're putting on yourselves for a 41-year-old to perform. Because I think that every milestone that the Steelers miss with Rodgers, the more they have to succeed in 2025. Because the louder the noise becomes if they don't. If Rodgers doesn't show up until July and shows up at training camp and misses OTAs and minicamp, and we go through this whole thing, and the Steelers start out poor. You want to know what everybody's going to be talking about? How Rodgers missed OTAs and minicamp, and how he didn't have the full offseason to work with this team and learn the playbook, and that's why the Steelers are in a bad spot. If the Pittsburgh Steelers have an atrocious season, but have waited until July to sign Aaron Rodgers and looked like a laughingstock and a fool throughout the entire offseason, because that's what they look like, let's be honest. Yeah. They are the biggest clowns in the NFL right now. If you have done that and then find yourself in July and then you struggle, I mean, you are at a place where most other teams don't survive this. Most other coaches don't survive this. And I have very strong, I think Mike Tomlin's a good coach. I also think that he may have lost his grip on how to do things with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He may not be the best candidate for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I still think he's a great coach. This is the place where, I was told one time throughout and I'm not going to say when, because I don't feel that I was told to tell anybody, but I was told at one point this offseason, I was told that Mike Tomlin was very firmly told, you're running out of chances at quarterback. You're Aaron Rodgers does not count as that chance, but you're running out of chances at quarterback. You can't, the next big shot that you take can't be a miss, because if it's a miss, the fans are already too loud. The noise is already ridiculous. This is on you. This is 3 strikes and you're out type of situation. It's the first time that I ever believed the Steelers actually took, I don't want to say moving on from Tomlin seriously, but it was the first time that in my head I went, oh, they understand the situation that they are in and that Tomlin has put them in. And Aaron doesn't count, but it's going to look really, really bad and make the window of what the next quarterback does much more narrow. You don't get the gap year of a rookie quarterback if you draft him, if Aaron Rodgers stinks this season. You know what I'm saying? That goes away. This is you got to be great or you're not. And it's just the pressure builds. It's a snowball effect. And that's what I think. At this point, the Steelers are at a place where they've waited so long for Rodgers that the longer the snowball's moving, and you go 10-7, nobody's talking about it. You go 7-10, that snowball's ginormous going into the offseason, where you have to hit on a quarterback and you have nowhere else to go.
Yeah. So, let me ask you a question real quick here, Noah. If the Steelers do, in fact, wait on Rodgers, he comes in regardless of the time, but let's say there is some sort of wait. Let's at least posit that he doesn't come to OTAs next week. He signs in July or something. He's the starting quarterback. The Steelers go 7-10 or 6-11. One of those losing seasons. Is there any chance that Tomlin's job is gone? Is there any chance that Tomlin's job is on the line in the summer of 2026, or because he signed that extension last year, is it just the start of the conversation?
It's just the start of the conversation. That's all it is. So one thing needs to be made very clear. The Steelers would never fire Mike Tomlin. That would never happen. They would mutually part ways at the end of an extension. That's what it would be. So he's got 3 years. They start this year. He's got 2 years after this one. So after that, they would move on. That's what it would be, if that's what the case was. But it's not, they would never fire. Tomlin wouldn't get fired. Not after 20 seasons. You don't have 2 losing seasons and then it's like, oh, okay, there it is. It's over. You lost. But I do think that it makes this is the first year. Last year didn't count. Those talks got loud to a point where it had to be taken seriously. This is the season where this is the season that decides if it's real or not, that there isn't a next extension. This is what that season is for the Pittsburgh. That's what I believe, at least, is this is what that season is for the Steelers, is they have to, Tomlin decides whether he locks in that next extension already, or if he doesn't, because this is him. It's a heavy hand in Tomlin right now. Tomlin is the guy that I don't know the exact dynamic. What I do know is that there have been multiple times this offseason where Tomlin has wanted one thing, the Steelers have wanted a different thing. They've gone Tomlin's way. Some of them, they haven't gone Tomlin's way, but they would open the door for Tomlin to make that decision, and they didn't. Rodgers is one of them. Rodgers is a Tomlin guy. You know, Tomlin is a let's go win a Super Bowl right now. Rodgers gives you that opportunity. Again, it all comes down to how this season looks, but you could take it full circle here. It makes it inevitable that Aaron Rodgers will not will not have a competition with Mason Rudolph. And then at the end of that, it makes it so much more important that he shows up, you know, that if Rodgers shows up by next Thursday, there is no talk. There's none. It's over. You know, what's the conversation to be had? Aaron Rodgers didn't show up before nothing. He showed up on time. You know what I mean? Like, he walked in the door the same day as TJ Watt. They just said, all right, what's up, guys? Good to see you. Great to meet you. I'm here for the first day of practice. That's what, you know, he shows up by OTAs. There is no conversation to be had. We've just been dramatic for a couple of months. He doesn't. Conversation's there. And it's very, very loud. Very, very loud. Closing thoughts on this before we talk Chris Olave.
I just think that this truly is like the make or break year for Tomlin in terms of his evaluation of quarterbacks. I think especially if Rodgers is the choice to be brought in and he's QB1, if it doesn't pan out, I have very, very real doubts and criticisms of Mike Tomlin and his ability to evaluate a franchise quarterback.
I agree. Tough spot, especially I'm very high on Mike Tomlin, but I'm not.
Love Mike T.
Yeah, it's just you got to win games and you got to have a quarterback. And right now the Steelers don't have either of those things. All right, let's talk wide receiver here. Our boy Nick Fairbaugh, friend of the show, has had some interesting. Is that a morning Alani?
Yes, sir.
What? Bro, what?
It's a mini can. Come on now.
Unbelievable. The mini cans are key because, for one, the peach flavor is good. The rest of the flavors are terrible. Like, I'm not. This thing makes me cringe every time I take a sip of it. And maybe it's because I leave it here for days at a time and just sip it as I'm going, but it makes me cringe every time. And two, you drink a full one of these, like I'll drink a full one during a podcast, and by the time we're done, I'm shaking. Like it's just because it's not like we leave. I'm not going to be athletic. I'm sitting here to work. You know, I'm moving. No, I'm going downstairs to get a cup of coffee to add the caffeine to the caffeine and calm my body down. And it just doesn't. It doesn't. Shout out a little 928. The 928 Alani. I love it. All right. Friend of the show, Nick Fairbaugh, has had plenty to say on Chris Olave, reporting over the weekend that the Pittsburgh Steelers did call the New Orleans Saints and did some due diligence on their 24-year-old wide receiver. Now it's come out what the asking price could be for Chris Olave if the Pittsburgh Steelers were to somehow convince New Orleans, hey, let's make a deal. He said this the other day in a story, quote, the trade cost for Olave would not be light. League sources had consensus that it would take at least one day two pick, likely a second round pick for the Saints to part ways with Olave before his fourth season. If they even considered trading him, given the Saints have no reason or desire to move Olave, the cost is likely higher than that. You look at Chris Olave, second round pick. Are you comfortable with it? If you have to give up more, are you still potentially comfortable with it?
No, the second round pick sounds really nice. Because I feel like that would be a steal for Pittsburgh. The more I think about it, I know we touched on this a little bit last week, but looking more over, what he's done in his career despite the injuries and being 24, I'm great with giving up a second round pick, especially in 2026, while there is a plethora of draft picks for the Steelers to still grab quality players with. I think that's a very reasonable price tag for the Steelers to pay. Here's, in Farabaugh's quote, I think the very important thing there is if the Saints are willing to do a deal, because they really don't have any incentive yet to really trade him, at least at this point in the offseason. So I could very much see them holding firm on wanting a first round pick. And then if I'm the Steelers, if I'm Omar Khan, I balk at that price right now. And I, say appreciate it, but that's just not something we're willing to do right now. But a second round pick, I'm still very much in on. What about you?
I agree. I think I'm good with the second round pick. I look at Chris Olave as a guy that I would have given up. I thought George Pickens held a second round value.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Olave is in that same boat for me. I mean, no character concerns and more production seems great. Derek Carr is probably a better quarterback than anything that George Pickens has ever played with, but still not like the cream of the crop here. You know, it's not like Chris Olave was out here with a phenomenal team around him. Like, yeah, decent team, but Taysom Hill was the guy, you know, like if you were looking at New Orleans offense, like if you asked 10 people to name somebody on New Orleans offense, I bet you 7 random ones would be like, oh, that quarterback that plays the other positions, that guy. And that's what they would say. Chris Olave has never had he's had a decent team around him. Definitely, again, better than what George has had, but has had better production. I think that's significant. I'd give up a second round pick for Chris Olave. I honestly, it wouldn't even budge me to think Chris Olave for a second would hinder anything for the Steelers long term or right now. I think it fixes their wide receiver position this season and next season. And then from there, you decide on if you're going to pay him. You're going rookie quarterback route, so you have money to spend. Sign TJ Watt so you understand. We could talk Aaron Rodgers all day. You don't know what the biggest holdup in anything for the Steelers is right now is having zero idea what they're going to pay TJ Watt for the next 4 years. You know, if you have an understanding of TJ's getting paid $40 million a year for the next 4 years, that's what we've agreed upon. This is what the cap hits look like, because you could say, oh, it's going to be 40. No. It's going to work out in different ways. The cap hit and the cap number is going to be significantly different year to year. And the way you could adjust it and work past it with signing bonuses and all these things is going to be different from year to year. You need to understand that. Once you understand that, then you could go make a second round pick for a Chris Olave and everything's fine. You know, like at that point, who cares? You already have it all figured out. You don't care about the quarterback. He's going to get paid nothing over the next 5 years. That's where the holdup is. That to me, that makes giving up a second round pick for Chris Olave a little bit more dangerous, but not dangerous enough to be worried about it. Like there's, again, zero part of me that sits here and says, if the New Orleans Saints said second for Chris, great, take it, have fun. You know, great time. We still have enough to trade for our quarterback next year in the NFL draft. Things are fine. You know, there's no pullback on a Chris Olave. You have a phenomenal wide receiver core. Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson still have opportunities to succeed and be that 2 and that 3, and that's awesome, and that's what you're looking for. And you have your studs for next year. I don't care about this year, but it helps this year because DK is phenomenal, and I think it's wild that there are some people out there being like, George Pickens is better than DK Metcalf.
False.
Like false. It's a false report. Okay, that's not true. Not true at all. Is George Pickens great? Definitely. Is Chris Olave great? Definitely. Is Chris Olave better than DK Metcalf? No. Chris Olave better than George Pickens? Potentially. Definitely potentially. And I think that dynamic, to me, zero questions asked on if I would go with Chris Olave. I want to ask you the trade package, but first, before we do that, I almost forgot about our boys over at Factor, and I want to make sure that I spread the word for all of our lovely fans. Make this your best season yet with nutritious 2-minute meals from Factor. Eating well has never been this easy. Just heat up and enjoy, giving you more time to do what you want. Get outside instead of prepping and cooking indoors. Factor meals arrive fresh and ready to eat, perfect for any active lifestyle. With 45 weekly menu options, you can pick gourmet meals that fit your goals. Choose from Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, Keto, and more. Factor powers your day with satisfying breakfasts, on-the-go lunches, premium dinners, and guilt-free snacks and desserts. It's easy to savor more this spring. Factor meals pack in the flavor with none of the fuss. I'm a big Factor guy. I've been using Factor for a long time, to be very honest with you, because I'm super lazy. I tend to spend way too much money if I don't go with a pre-cooked meal. That's my issue. It's not the, oh, I'm too lazy to cook. It's the, I will go spend $30 on lunch for zero reason whatsoever every single day. Factor makes that, well, way better for me, my budget, and definitely my gut. Get started at factormeals.com/allsteelerstalk, 50 off, and use code allsteelerstalk50 to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's code allsteelerstalk50 at factormeals.com/allsteelerstalk50 for 50% off plus free shipping. Shout out to our boys over at Factor. Ooh. I will ask you this bad boy to close the Chris Olave conversation. I have no idea who the general manager of the New Orleans Saints is. Actually, I do, because I see him every year at the combine, and I look at him and go, "You're not a GM, dude." Like, yeah,
is it Mickey Loomis?
I think it is. And that dude looks like he shows up in just a tee. He looks like me right now. This is his press conference outfit.
That's my kind of guy.
It's awesome. You're on the phone with him. You're Omar Khan. What are you offering New Orleans, and where does this negotiation go before you say we're done?
I would start with the George Pickens package. Basically be like, here's a third. You can have our fifth if you give us a seventh. If they hang up, then you call back in like an hour and be like, hey, I was just kidding. But we would do a second round pick plus that late round pick swap. Maybe let's throw out a roster player swap if we're trying to get extra creative, but I don't think that is really the route the Steelers want to go. So I would hold pretty firm at the second round pick. I'd be willing to go up to maybe giving like a fourth round pick if we got, a sixth round pick back, just to feel some sort of value. But if they demand a first round pick and the conversations, cannot proceed past that, then I have to wait them out. It's just not the time to be expending that sort of draft capital.
Okay. I think I'm on the same boat as you. Is where we sit right now. I'm okay with the Pittsburgh Steelers extending a second round offer for Chris Olave. And then once they come back and say, second and a third, I'm saying, no, we're okay, because you're not going to win a Super Bowl this year. You could get quality talent in the second round. And at the end of the day, Chris Olave's price goes down a year from now. And if you're still confident that you're going to, want a wide receiver and be able to pay that wide receiver, have options and look at Chris Olave and say, all right, great. And you just never know. Like, you don't know who the T. Higgins is going to be, where the team just decides they're not going to sign him until the very last moment. Or you're not going to know, who the George Pickens is going to be until after the season, when you're saying, all right, this guy's available. We didn't expect him to be. Let's make an offer for, so-and-so, whoever's out there. And I'm sorry, guys, but right now where we stand, the Steelers don't have a starting quarterback. So there's just no point in now, again, week 3 rolls by, and that's the beauty of the NFL. Week 3 rolls by. You're 2-0. Things are looking great. The Saints are 0-2. Tyler Shuck looks like a disaster. It's over. The Saints season's done. You want to call New Orleans and say, hey, we'll give you a second round pick for Chris Olave? I bet you they'd take it then. And at the same time, that's still a move that benefits your team. He's going to 2 weeks. He plays after the bye week in week 5. And, he's not a great fantasy pickup, but he's a good back half of the season option for the Steelers at wide receiver. And I think at that point, the options are there. Again, is it definitely going to work out? No, but I'm not pushing the limits to risk where you go next season for a wide receiver. And at the same time, there will be options. It's just a matter of right now, it's May, excuse me. And there aren't really many options because, well, it's May and teams. It's just like everybody. Do you expect Will Levis to be on the Titans by the start of the season? Chances are no, right? Yeah, potentially, probably not. Somebody's going to call and make that trade. Nobody expected George Pickens, but we were talking July, and that's where it is. Like, it's at a place where everybody's very comfortable with their roster. That comfortability changes when you show up in training camp and realize your quarterback's just not good, just not the guy. And at that point,
it changes.
things
drastically changes.
Exactly. All right. That's everything on our agenda. We're going to turn the page here and start answering all of your questions. But first, we're going to take a quick break.
Pittsburgh, this one's for you. From the voices behind all Steelers talk comes Black and Gold apparel, your go-to for bold, fan-driven merch that reps the city, the Steelers, and everything in between. Whether you bleed black and gold or just love that Pittsburgh grit, we've got something for you. It's more than a podcast. It's a community. And thanks to your support, we're proud to bring the passion from our mics to your closets. Gear up, stand out, and show the world what real fans look like. Shop now at blackandgoldapparel.myshopify.com.
All righty. Shout out to our members. Shout out to our super chatters. Make sure it's Monday to call into Wednesday's call-in show. Can't thank you guys enough for an awesome week last week. With that said, let's get it kicking. We're going to start with Wesley here. Noah, can you please make an AST golf polo? I was pretty fired up about this one before we got started. So the answer to this is yes. It's actually immediately on my to-do list after this one. So, you know, all the other cool, important business paperwork I have to take care of, which is, you know, very significantly large right now, will be put on the side for a golf polo. I'm not even joking on this.
Good.
This is dead serious. Yeah, no,
this is what we all want.
This is happening. So thank you for the idea. Phenomenal idea. Justin Gordon here. So if Aaron Rodgers sucks or is mid, Tomlin's on the hot seat, but if we win a Super Bowl, then he retires. Is Tomlin extended even though we're in a worse position? I don't think the Steelers. So two things here. One, you win a Super Bowl, none of it matters at all. Who cares? You know what I mean? Anybody who I mean, people ask that constantly, but anybody who's sitting around going, man, dude, I would hate to win a Super Bowl and then stink next year. Like, what? What are we talking about? You just won a Super. You did it. You did the thing that you were looking to do. Most teams don't do it twice. In fact, your chances of winning a Super Bowl a second time is like almost zero in back-to-back years. The Steelers, I mean, if the Steelers won a Super Bowl in a place where they were just throwing darts at a board and hoping something stuck, phenomenal season, best outcome humanly possible. That would be math. Now he's already extended, and the next quarterback that came in, because that's the thing, if you finish 32nd or you finish 20th, you still got to move up to go get your quarterback. You're just going to be giving up more to get to 32, from 32 to 7 or something. If that's the case, I still think that the Steelers have to turn that quarterback into something good. You can't let that quarterback struggle, because do I think it ends Tomlin? No. But do I think that it still needs to happen unless the Steelers aren't going to be satisfied? Certainly. The difference here, okay, the very significant part of this that needs to be mentioned is if the Steelers win a Super Bowl, there's like the possibility that Art Rooney decides to hand his team off to his son and say, I'm leaving on top. This is awesome. And if that's the case, I mean, is that restart the Tomlin upset clock? Like, is that where this happens? Either way, you've won a Super Bowl, so everything restarts. And nobody can be, if anybody's mad, like, I can't believe we won a Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers. That son of a bitch. Like, no, like, what are we? I think everybody's satisfied. The Steelers are maybe in a worse spot, but I mean, they just won a Super Bowl, so that's the best spot you could be in. And you still have to go get your quarterback. So I don't think it offers him an extension. I do think it puts them in a very good spot to say, this is why we kept Tomlin. And I think his immunity lasts quite longer than it does right now. Now, if Aaron Rodgers stinks this season, I would say hot seat is a little bit of a stretch, but maybe hot seat adjacent. Maybe it's the first time that Art Rooney is kind of giving a side eye to Mike T and saying, all right, pal, love you like a son, but we got to get this figured out because this is a little ridiculous. You got different thoughts on that?
No, yeah, I think the lukewarm seat is definitely where he'd be if this doesn't pan out. Yeah, I have one thought while I was listening to you talk is that, Lamar Jackson did not go in the top 10 of his draft class.
No, he didn't.
I'm not saying the Steelers would guaranteed find someone at 32 if they hypothetically win the Super Bowl in like Justin's hypothetical here. But if they did win a Super Bowl or have an incredible amount of success, it would certainly reinstill that confidence in Tomlin's evaluating abilities. So, especially as his 2026 quarterback class seems to be one of the most exciting ones in years, keeps building that way. If it continues on that path, like, who's to say they can't find that quarterback of the future, between picks 20 and 32? Is it less likely? Sure, absolutely it is. But if it's a deep class, you might be able to find that franchise QB in an unlikely draft position in the first round. So I'm not ruling that out entirely just yet.
Yeah, I mean, look, it doesn't. Again, like if you win a Super Bowl and if the Rams win a Super Bowl and Matthew Stafford retires, LA is not like, oh, I can't believe it. I can't. This is awful situation. Like, no, it's the best way to go out. So I do think it hurts their chances at landing like the quarterback they want next season, but
for sure.
You can't get your pie or your cake and eat it too. You can't. Is that the saying? Is that you can't have your pie and eat it too? That's just not. You got one or the other, and it'll work out. It'll work out. Cody Silva here. I watched Gilly and Wallow go talk to second-year players, and it showed the training room. If the training room and weight room are quote-unquote cheap, there must be some real spoiled people out there. So the craziest part about this is that if you walked into the Steelers like training room or weight room or whatever, their training room's kind of small, but their weight room, like you'd look at it and go, yeah, this is the craziest thing I've ever been in. But if you go to like Alabama's, you'd be like, yeah, Steelers facility sucks. This is awful. I mean, even Pitt, if you went next door to Pitt's, you'd be like, Steelers facility could use a little bit of upgrade. Think that, Aaron Donald's, I think $6 million or something that he donated to the Pitt facility. Maybe Art Rooney should do the same thing. Maybe we should do some here. It's just like, go watch an interview from like the Texans locker room where like the lockers are glowing behind them, and then you're going, all right, I see where you're coming from here. I think that everything's fine. There have been guys that played their whole careers in Pittsburgh who have never complained. I've never once heard TJ Watt or Cam Hayward sit there and be like, I just can't get strong and big enough, like they're good. So it's just the person. They're definitely not, they're not at the same spot, I would say, as some other teams, but it's the NFL, dude. Like everything's crazy. They have two pools that I don't even know what they do, but I always see guys in them and they're like exercising in them. And I'm just looking at it going, I think you're just in a pool. Like, I think you're just
sitting in water.
I think you're just hanging out, pal. I think you're just hanging out. William here. If the Steelers are looking at Olave, does that open up Pandora's box when it comes to the wide receiver position? In other words, does it mean that at some point, no matter what, they're going after one this offseason? What do you think?
Yeah, I think Omar Khan is turning over every stone at the wide receivers position. So yeah, I think Pandora's box is already open. To use the analogy we're already in, I don't think that guarantees a move happens. I don't think that guarantees a move even necessarily comes close. But I do think that box has already been open, and I think Omar Khan is a very aggressive GM in terms of gauging trade interest, values, returns, things like that. So I would not be shocked if we heard, secondhand or something that he had gotten in contact with multiple teams about multiple different receivers, or if we learn about that throughout the remaining time in the summer. So yeah, I think Olave is like the tip of the iceberg, but I think that box has already been blown apart wide open.
Yeah, I think they've Omar's. I can't wait for. So the first day of training camp is the next time I'll informally hang out with Omar Khan, and I can't wait for him to walk in, sit down, and me go, "Hey, dude, your bullshit meter is getting real crazy these days. You gotta calm it down, buddy. Like you're getting real wild with the try and hide things, and it's just not working out." That's how I look at it. Like we're very confident in our wide receiver room. Yeah, you are definitely, but you're still looking for options. Like there's no chance the Steelers are just going to do nothing for 2 months. Maybe they don't pull anything off, but there's no chance they're not going to do anything. There's no football for 2 months. they will make phone calls. They will make all the phone calls in the world and say, let's just, let's see what our options are as we sit here. Because again, like, just like you said, it's been blown up. Like even before the Olave thing, I bet you they've called 3 other teams by now and we just know about them yet. And they're out there, because last year they were calling Brandon Ayuk, but they also Pandora's box was so open last year that they were on the phone and everybody was talking about Brandon Ayuk until this next name became available. And then they would call down to I remember getting a phone call saying the Steelers are currently speaking with Juju Smith-Schuster's agent just in case. And I'm like, this is where we're at here, huh? We've got this far. The same thing is going to happen this year. That's where we're at.
Yeah.
Potato salad, member for 3 months. Shout out. Is this your first time seeing potato salads?
No. I'm just already reading the question.
I apologize. Our Father, Friarmouth, shall rise us from winless wild card rounds. We could have Joe Dirt at quarterback 1. It don't matter. Muth in 6. Shout out to Pat Friarmouth, man. Shout out to Pat Friarmouth. That dude is there are, oh man. That's all. I wish I could. So sometimes I go up to Pat in the locker room and I'll ask him just a 1 question thing. And sometimes I'll ask something stupid. You know what I mean? Like when the Guardian catcher thing, I just walked up. I was like, yo, what are your thoughts? And I can't tell you what he says to me, but it is I'm in tears laughing at how hilarious this guy is. Pat's a dude, man. Did you notice that in his the wobbly toy thing that they were trying to play with on social media the other day?
Yeah.
He's in a golf polo, definitely just came off the links, showed up for work. So he's a dude, bro. Pat Friarmouth, shout out.
He's
Pat
the man. I would kill to see him, rack up a 1,000-yard season in this offense. I think that would just be the best thing possible for the Steelers offense.
I agree. I definitely agree. Rec 7 here. Member for 1 month. Doesn't make sense to bark up the John Mechie tree again. Would you consider an Alex Pierce? Would you consider sending the house for Jacoby Myers? I'll start with the bottom one here. I don't think I'd send the house for Jacoby Myers. He's a little bit older. I think he's just about 30. Not the guy that I'd be sending a boatload of picks for. I also don't think that Vegas is looking to move on from him. I think he's found a home there. Alec Pierce, I think I like more than John Mechie. Mechie to me is a guy that last year had his peak interest. That's a name that people are going to be there. Now, maybe you could get him real cheap, but the Houston Texans don't seem to see much in this dude. And that's worrisome because they've dealt with so many injuries and they've still continued to look in other directions from a guy who I believe was drafted in the 2nd round. That makes me a little bit worrisome on him. Alec Pierce is a dude who's got size. I don't think he's a wide receiver 2. I think he could come in here and be a better Robert Woods, which is an upgrade for the Steelers, but I don't think I'm satisfied with an Alec Pierce. I don't think I'm in on John Mechie right now. Jacoby Myers is a wide receiver 2. I just don't know if I'd sell the house. I don't think I'd give up anything more than a 3rd or a 4th for a Jacoby Myers.
Yeah, agreed pretty much across the board there. I would love if John Mechie was able to, put it all together and be consistent. And I would love for that player, that version of him to be on the Steelers. Sure. Alec Pierce, again, he would be a fine addition, but I don't see him being a, real difference maker. Jacoby Myers, I love Jacoby Myers. I think he would actually make a real difference in the Steelers offense, but yeah, I mean, he's coming off, I want to say the best receiving season of his career with Vegas last season. And I think the return that Las Vegas would want would just not really match the timeline that the Steelers are working out. Again, if we keep talking about finding a fit that is good for 25, but ideal for 26, that Myers doesn't really fit the bill. He's kind of the inverse of that. So yeah, all decent options, no one I'm sending the house for or giving up major picks to bring to the organization.
No, I definitely agree. Again, if you could get him cheap somehow, which I don't think that would be possible, he'd be my pick on this list. Excuse me. I think he's the only one that moves the needle out of these 3 options.
Agreed.
No, maybe it wants to work. Maybe it doesn't want to work. I'm trying real hard to change comments here. It's not
working hard.
There it is. There it is. Marlon Lewis. 3 months of a member. 3 months go by fast. What backs on backers collisions are you waiting for? Great question. Great question. I want to see Cole Holcomb for the first time in forever. Super excited for that one. Him on anybody would be great. Jaylen Warren versus. That's tough. That's real tough. There's no Landon Roberts this year. Like E-Rob versus. Can I tell you guys a story?
Please.
I feel so bad. This guy's name is John Lovett. Okay. He played for Penn State. He was a running back for Penn State. He showed up in Pittsburgh. Everybody was real excited when he showed up. Like, I remember I got a couple of DMs from Penn State fans saying, like, hey, this dude's a stud. Like, you know, give him I hope he gets a shot. He's good. I was pumped to see him. Show up. They do backs on backers. First thing they do after individual drills, going over. I'm super fired up. Mike Tomlin must have just been in a mood. I couldn't tell you what was going on, but he puts John Lovett up against Mark Robinson. Mark Robinson smokes him. Like, I'm talking,
right?
Takes his lunch money. It's so bad. It's brutal how bad it looks. Like, I feel so bad for the guy. And I'm like, oh man, dude, there's your NFL shot right down the tube real quick. Well, Mike T wasn't done. Landon Roberts next. He goes, E-Rob, you too. And then he tells John, he says, you stay. You're going again. E-Rob, dude, worse than Mark Rob. Smokes him. And I'm just like, oh my good. And neither of these guys are trying to get around him. They're just trying to run through him. Like, that's all. That was the goal, is to hurt this human. And they did it, dude. And it was so bad the second time that we didn't see John Lovett again for the rest of training camp. He disappeared after that. The next time I saw him, I was walking down late from the media room onto the field, and he was like talking to some kids on the sideline like 2 weeks later about his gamer tag or something. And then he was released like the second he was out of concussion protocol. Like, that was it. I've felt so bad for this guy. So bad. But shout out John Lovett, man.
Hope he's all right.
I hope he's all right too. There is no like big one. I mean, Alex Highsmith versus anybody off the edge is always great. DJ Thomas Jones is the name I'll be watching this year. Caleb Johnson's obviously another one, but I want to see the fullback, man, hit somebody. Let's see if this is real. And against Alex Highsmith, against Jack Sawyer would be a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
I was waiting for you to bring up Sawyer.
Who you got? What's your names?
Jack Sawyer for sure. I want to see that big human, see what he can do. But yeah, I want to see him go up against any of the backers, and I want to see Caleb Johnson. I want to see him kind of truck somebody. So, whether that's Highsmith, whether that's a Cole Holcomb, or whether that's whoever, you name it. I just want to see anything, good or bad. I want to just see Caleb Johnson in action against some top backers in the Steelers organization.
Caleb Johnson would be a good one. Caleb Johnson needs to work on his pass block, but this is, there's no better place than Latrobe in the corner of the end zone, where you got guys firing you up and coaches talking more smack than the players themselves. Easy, without question. William, if the Steelers are looking at Olave, we already answered that. Excuse me. I apologize again. Ernie Jones here. Question, guys. I heard that Will Howard throws and runs like a Josh Allen. Do you think that's true? I will say, and I'll give you the floor on this one, I will say that I think it's impossible to compare anybody to an NFL MVP. It's very hard to say this guy looks like the dude who is the best quarterback of last season. That's, in my eyes, is very, very difficult to do. That being said, there are a lot of comparisons out there to Josh Allen, but, player comps are dangerous. They're always dangerous to follow because, if they're real bad, you'll rule out a guy. If they're real good, you'll hype up a guy too much. Being Josh Allen is very difficult to do. I will say that. Your thoughts on?
Lofty expectations. Would love nothing more than for that comparison to feel legitimate. But I think the size is the obvious biggest thing that sticks out. The one thing that does sort of strike me as Josh Allen like is that I do think Will Howard is a little bit quicker on the run than a defender might anticipate him being. And I think for a time, Josh Allen had that sort of, belief too, just because he was a bigger quarterback, but we know how mobile he can be. I'm not saying Will Howard is like a scrambling type of QB or anything anything even close to that, but I do think that if he can get out of the pocket, he's a little bit quicker than, a 6'4", 6'5" quarterback should be.
I mean, definitely look at his Kansas State film where it's like that dude just ran. I was just like, I have nothing around me. We're just gonna do this. We're just gonna, and he won a Big 12 championship because of it. Shout out. I think it's dangerous, but I do see, if you stood the two next to each other and Will Howard grew his hair out and they threw a couple of passes, I'd be looking at it going, maybe the same guy. Maybe the same guy. Maddie Jacob, I love the shirt. What's your favorite Marvel movie? Are you excited for the Fantastic Four?
Oh my gosh. Thanks, Maddie. Yeah, I'm super excited for the Fantastic Four. I'm gonna try to temper how much I talk about Marvel stuff on the Steelers show, but big Marvel fan, big comics guy. Super excited for Fantastic Four. My crazy guess is that I think Sue Storm is pregnant with Valeria Richards, not Franklin Richards. But we'll see what happens. I love the Fantastic Four. Favorite Marvel movie is not a movie, but I love the WandaVision series. I have a tattoo of it on my arm. But yeah, love Marvel. Thank you, Maddie. Appreciate the compliment.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Couple of what's more likely's here from Marlon. What's more likely, trading for a number 2 wide receiver, or signing Rodgers, or keeping this wide receiver room and a quarterback room the way it is now? Mason Rudolph, DK Metcalf, and Calvin Austin, or insert name here, DK Metcalf and Aaron Rodgers.
Wow. I think it's more likely that things stay the same because as much as we've talked about wide receiver 2 trades recently, I don't think they're going to make another trade for a legitimate wide receiver 2. I think a trade could happen for a wide receiver, and I think we all will go, he's probably not the number 2 by, his record and NFL career. But so I think it's more likely that this QB room and wide receiver room stays the same than that actual number 2 wide receiver and Rodgers comes to pass.
Okay. So you said keeping it as is.
I think that's more likely, not because I don't think Rodgers will be a part of it, but because I don't see the number 2 wide receiver happening.
Okay. I'm going to go the other way around here. I'm going to say what's more likely on my end, wide receiver 2 and Aaron Rodgers. Could be totally wrong here, but I just think Omar's just, Omar's the guy that he says one thing, you think the other. And then you just hope for the best. You hope for the best. He's got another one here. What's more likely, Aaron Rodgers or Will Levis on the Steelers roster in 2025?
Rodgers for sure.
Yeah.
Man, can you imagine Rodgers doesn't sign and the pivot is Will Levis?
No, I can't.
That would be
I can't.
That's full tank mode, right? Like then there's no other way around it.
You look at Will Levis, I think would one day be on the Steelers' radar if Aaron Rodgers didn't show up. But I just think Aaron Rodgers is showing up. There's no part of me that sits here and says A-Rod's not going to be here. Maybe, but look at when your biographer's saying it, when your former teammates are saying it, when all the coaches are when everybody's saying Rodgers is coming, take it and say Rodgers is most likely coming. I'm going A-Rod on this one. Rec 7 already ordered my tickets for the Pats game. I'm wearing an AB jersey just to remind the Patriots fans of the 1 year, that 11-day stretch. Hope to see you, Noah. I am looking at tickets. I booked Chicago yesterday. I'm set there. Met New York week 1. I might not be there. I might be sending somebody else down there. And then Boston is one of my only issue with Boston is I fly out to Ireland the next day. So might be a tough turnaround. Not impossible. I would like to make it happen. Got to find a flight out of Boston the same night as the game, which, you got to give the take, if you're going to Ireland, it can't be like, oh man, can't believe I have to work the day before. Like, shut up, dude. You're going to Ireland. Stop complaining. Shout out, Rack, man. I hope it's a good seat, and I 100% respect the AB jersey.
Love that move. Love that.
Pittsburgh Hornets, do we have to watch whom we trade with, as the Saints might also be in the race for quarterback next year? Great question. Do you look at it and say, okay, be careful because, New Orleans might be able to use that second round pick to jump you and go get whoever in next year's draft?
I think it's worth considering. Sure. I don't think you have to be overly cautious in that regard. So I don't think you have to watch who you trade with, because I think most teams have such a vast and varied evaluation and look of players across the board, let alone quarterbacks. Like, Mason Rudolph's a first round grade in Pittsburgh or whatever. But, I say that kind of in jest to suggest that, like, all these teams view these players so differently, right? The Steelers obviously viewed Shadur Sanders in one light, and the Cleveland Browns viewed him in another light, and the other 30 franchises viewed him in another light. So I don't think that just because you give an extra asset to the New Orleans Saints, for example, it means that they will jump you to get the quarterback that you always wanted or identified as the next franchise quarterback. So yeah, I think you have to be cautious to a point, but if you get bogged down in being like, well, we can't send these out because we're going to get jumped in the future, you're just going to get basically like stuck in where you are without being able to make a move.
I agree. I think you got to take risks, and that's a risk worth taking. You're not going to trade with a top tier team that already has a quarterback and all these good things for a wide receiver. Like the George Pickens thing was very rare in the NFL, because these teams are looking to win a Super Bowl. They're looking to compete right now. You're not going to give up a big asset to go do that. You're going to have to trade with a bad team that most likely doesn't have a quarterback. And that's, you're going to have to take that risk. New Orleans, I think, is a safer risk than a lot of teams, because just like the Giants, if you were able to trade for like Darius Slayton from New York, and which I don't think is likely, but if you were able to make that happen, you could look at it and say they have Jackson Dart. So chances are they're not going to go get another first round quarterback next year. Okay, we could go make that move. Tyler Shuck is like walking that line of he's going to get a year. You're going to see what he gets. And maybe if they pick 8th, they build around Tyler Shuck. And maybe if they pick 1st, they go get whoever the first quarterback in the draft is. But I think it's a risk you do need to take in order to, build a roster for the guy you want next year. And I don't think it's necessarily the worst risk you could take.
Yeah.
William here. Who is your training camp sleeper? We'll go mini camp sleeper since we're starting here. Who's your camp sleeper heading into next week?
I don't think it's much of a sleeper, but I think it's the person who most intrigues me is seeing Brock Taylor just do anything with the rest of the team. I know I not a sleeper because I feel like we've talked about him a bunch, and we've gotten so many comments and stuff about him being a factor and possibly making the jump. So yeah, I think I'm the most excited about him, and he's probably the person who has the most to prove of those people. So yeah, let's go Brock Taylor.
Okay. I like it. My sleeper, Kenneth Gainwell, is a big one. I think he's going to be, I think he's going to impress a lot of people. I think he's going to look really good as a running back 3. Camp sleeper. You can't go offensive or defensive lineman because, that's just boring. Nobody's paying attention to those guys. Peyton Wilson's one of them for me. For sure. Peyton Wilson's one of them for me. Juan Thornhill is one of them for me. I think he's going to be, and Zoom agrees, he's going to be an absolute stud. And Kenneth Gainwell, I think, would be my third. I think Kenneth Gainwell is going to be a cool piece to the Steelers offense this year. I mean, I'm excited to see it, but I think it's going to be a cool piece. All right, couple more here. Are we going to see the white uniforms with gold helmets this year? So I have heard gold helmets are a thing. New uniforms. Obviously, Art Rooney teased those. Nobody will tell me what exactly they are. I do know gold helmets are part of them. At least that's what I've been told. Right. Could be lied to, but at least that's what I've been told. White uniforms with gold helmets would be fantastic, though. Like, if that's the way to go. So I hate everybody who like makes new crazy. No, dude. Do the same and switch it up. Block numbers in the black with the gold helmet and the black stripe down. Oh, unbelievable. I hope so.
I'm down for that.
Yeah. I think we'll find out a little bit closer to the season, but I hope so. I hope so. All right, 2 more here. Doug B, what do you think with this team and the current line can lead to Mason's? Do you think with this team and current offensive line can lead to Mason's success? Do you have enough faith in the offense and the offensive line right now to say Mason would have any shot with the Steelers?
Any shot, yeah, I guess. No, I have very low confidence in their ability to actually find success, and I would define success as, not just winning 9 games, but being a legitimate playoff looking team. I just think if Mason is actually going to be the starter and that's how the Steelers are going to roll, the O-line's fine, but that's I don't think that would be enough to help Mason Rudolph because I just don't think he's a good enough quarterback.
Yeah, I think the offensive line is the biggest piece to any situation here. If the offensive line stinks, Aaron Rodgers stinks, Mason Rudolph stinks, everybody in between stinks. I think it comes down to Mason, just like I think it comes down to Rodgers. Like, I don't know if Rodgers is going to be good anymore. Rodgers could show up and stink. That's a real possibility. But I think Mason sits in the same, like, he could show up and not be good, at all. And you could be like, okay, we got our hopes up and this was cool, but it turned out to be exactly what we thought it was going to. And, that's a dangerous place to be for any team, really, especially a team like the Steelers, who everybody clearly wants to keep winning. All right, we'll finish it with this one. What's the likelihood the Steelers get another wide receiver? Your percent chance here, Pittsburgh ends up with a wide receiver.
75% chance that there is another wide receiver. I will put it at about 40% chance that we get a wide receiver 2.
Okay.
And so someone who has caught for at least 750 receiving yards within the last 2 seasons.
Okay. I love the metrics there. The metrics there.
Very strict parameters here.
I like it. I'm a big fan. I'm going to go 65% chance the Steelers land another wide receiver, and that wide receiver being a wide receiver 2. I think that there's potential to be a wide receiver 2. I think that potential might be not 750 yards, but might be, can I toss out a really terrible name that might actually be a name to watch?
Not?
Traylon Burks out of Tennessee.
He's probably going to get cut, though. Do you think they would?
I know. It doesn't say trade. It just says end up with another wide receiver. There are going to be guys that emerge in camp that the Steelers are just going, all right, let's take a flyer on them and see if it works. And yikes. But I think 65% chance that something along those lines happen. All right, we'll finish off with this one. Justin Gordon, is a cornerback in the second round a lock regardless of how Joey Porter does in 2025? My easy answer is yes. I think that outside of wide receiver, the Steelers' only other situation that they'd look at is, say, offensive guard, maybe. Broderick Jones at tackle is going to decide a lot of that. But if Broderick's good, best case scenario, everybody looks fine. Steelers are going corner early if they don't go free agency, because they need somebody opposite of Joey Porter. And this was a gap year. This was we need a bridge. We got to fill it out. We can't afford to go get Byron Murphy or DJ Reed. So we'll go get Darius Slay. And then next year we'll go get a corner. So to me, yes, almost a lock that it would be a corner in the second round.
Agreed. Yeah. And that's not even, it's independent of Joey Porter Jr. I think he's going to be fine in 25, but you still just need a second solid cornerback to start.
I agree. All right. With that one, everybody, we are heading out here. Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. And as always, find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. With that said, we will be back tomorrow. Enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg.